Hello there, Applied English. Welcome to day 42. This is our last day of instruction, actually, before I open up our unit test to close out this semester. Our objective for today is to work through our last little bit of poetry. We'll identify 3 more terms: alliteration, assonance, and onomatopoeia. I know those sound fancy, but you'll come to understand them as we work through our poetry sounds notes today. I would also note, you'll see in our lesson folder that there are some optional grammar review videos too. Part of the unit test will be some ACT-style grammar questions, just covering a couple different grammatical concepts we covered this semester. You can watch through our grammar review videos to get some ideas on what types of questions you'll see on your test. You may also notice if you've got any time left over today after today's lesson, you can use your remaining time to catch up on missing work, study for your unit test, those kinds of things. We'll talk more about finishing this semester at the end of this video here. I will warn you, this video will probably be slightly on the longer side, simply because we've got a lot of examples to work through with poetry, with sounds in poetry. But watching through this entire video should help you to ace that portion of your unit test in our next lesson here. So let's get it. I should say, let's pray, and then we'll get into our notes today. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for this day and for this opportunity to teach something that's more on the fun side. And I pray, God, that my students can enjoy learning about these different devices in poetry. And I pray, God, that you're helping all of us to finish this semester strong. We love you, Jesus. We pray this all in your name. Amen. Let's get to sounds in poetry. Poetry sounds notes, that's the one. Notice I added a folder for grammar mini reviews. I'm just going to try to keep those videos a couple minutes a piece as I review the grammatical concepts from this semester. You can look through those if you'd like, but we're going to do poetry notes first. And there's our PowerPoint right there. This is really the last little bit of teaching Mrs. Tan and I will be doing on poetry this semester, how to work with sounds in poetry. So you can watch this PowerPoint. You can click through it at your own pace, but I'll be doing it in actual PowerPoint so I get a good view on it. We do have the notes packet here as well, so I'm going to click view real quick. Over the last couple weeks, we covered the basics, so things like meter, rhyme, and analogies. 2 weeks ago, we practiced that with Fire and Ice by Robert Frost and Dreams by Langston Hughes. Last week we did the sites of poetry, imagery, symbolism, allusion. We looked at a biblical example, that's the Song of Mary, In a Station of the Metro by Ezra Pound, and we also did Good Hot Dogs by Sandra Cisneros. That was kind of that extra analysis video that I did as a demonstration for you. I should note that the poem that you will see on your unit test is fairly similar to Good Hot Dogs, so it might not be a bad idea to watch the Good Hot Dogs video again, just to get an idea of what you might be looking at. And then we get to today, the sounds of poetry. So a lot of examples today. We'll look at We Real Cool by Gwendolyn Brooks. We'll do Rifle again, listening for examples of these things. You'll notice this long poem by Quincy Troop. It's long, but it reads rather quickly. So that'll be kind of how we finish this lesson, is by listening to a poem that has a lot of sound devices in it and seeing how the sounds of a poem actually contribute to its theme as well. So once again, a lot of examples in today's lesson. These examples will prepare you for success on your grammar test. So once again, you can follow along. You can fill these in these notes if you like. You can fill them in your own notebook. Either way is fine. Just know that this is preparing you for your unit test in your next lesson here. I'm going to open up in PowerPoint. And here we go. Sounds in poetry. Let's get it. So read this poem by Gwendolyn Brooks while you listen to the audio recording of it. What do you notice about this poem when it's read aloud? Let me see if I can. Is my volume turned up here?
We real cool. A poem player. 7 We real cool. Yeah. Work lately. Sports strictly. Sing simply. Dance simply. Jazz beautifully. Dance.
We real cool. A pool plays. Sound at the golden shower. We good. We yes good. We lovely. We start to spread. We sing song. We thin gin. We jazz gin.
So I hope you notice as you were listening in on both of those readings of We Real Cool that the way a poem sounds actually kind of changes its interpretation of its meaning as well. The thing that to ask ourselves is, what do you notice about this poem when it's read aloud? Because all poetry is meant to be read aloud. It's meant to be heard and not just seen. And sometimes it's in hearing where some of the meanings of a poem come to life for us. Now, one thing that we might note with We Real Cool is that Gwendolyn Brooks plays around with sounds quite a bit in order to keep meter. So notice that those wheeze at the ends of each line really slow this poem down. This poem is meant to be taken slowly. It creates that atmosphere of this bar that the pool players are playing in, the golden shovel. But then notice also repeated sounds, right? We real cool, we left school. Cool in school is internal rhyme, but it's also a device called assonance, which we'll learn in a little bit here. Lurk late is alliteration. Strike straight, repeated L's, repeated S's. We're going to learn those terms today, and not just how they are used to make poems sound good and sound flowy and metrical like this one does. Oftentimes, the sounds that you hear when you're reading a poem can contribute to its meaning as well. We're going to practice that quite a bit today. Let's get some terms here first. So poetry is designed to be read aloud, like I mentioned earlier. Skilled poets use the sounds words make in order to develop their themes. So the last three poetic devices that I want you to learn this semester are alliteration, assonance, and onomatopoeia. Alliteration is what so many rappers and hip-hop artists are using nowadays. It's repeating consonant sounds in a line of poetry. Lines like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, right? You hear that P sound. Consonants are those 20-ish letters of the alphabet that are not vowels. So P in that example is one. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Notice that the alliteration controls the meter of that line. It's a very fast line because of all those repeated P sounds in there. Alliteration can also be used to imitate sounds too. Listen to this one. The barking beagle bit the butcher. Now, once again, metrically, that keeps a nice 1, 2, 3, 4 count. Barking, beagle, bit, butcher. It's kind of a punchy line of poetry right there. The other thing that B sound might be doing is making the sound of of the dogs, the beagles, snapping jaws or barking, right? Bark, 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 bark. The barking beagle bit the butcher. Could be making the sound of a dog snapping its jaws or barking right there. Just an idea on how poets might use alliteration to either imitate sounds, or use them for meter, or both. Just notice that alliteration makes that line sound good. Sometimes that's why poets choose to use these devices, but oftentimes they're used to imitate sounds too. Assonance is the opposite of that. So instead of repeating consonant sounds like P and B, assonance is repeating vowel sounds in a line of poetry. The light of the fire is a sight. Notice that I sound, light, I-G-H, fire, I-R-E, sight, I-G-H once again, so it's I sound 3 times in the same line. I. Within this line, the light of the fire is a sight. Notice that, once again, it's controlling meter. Those long vowels are forcing us to slow down a little bit. The light of the fire is a sight. In order to pronounce those long I sounds well, we have to slow down. And again, poets use alliteration and assonance for that reason, to speed up lines, to slow them down, to control their meter. Check this one. Those are some cool shoes, Sue. Reminds me a little bit of the meter from We Real Cool, right? And it uses the same word cool right there. In the definition of assonance, it says repeated vowel sounds in a line of poetry. So in the light of the fire is a sight, we had the same exact vowel 3 times. I, and I. And those are some cool shoes, Sue. We have different vowels. Double O makes an oo sound. O-E makes an oo sound in shoes. U-E makes an oo sound in Sue. So once again, different vowels, same sound. Welcome to the English language, right? The vowel A, for instance. It can be A as in bay. It can be A as in apple. It can be A as in car, right? So just notice that different vowels and different combinations of vowels in English can make different sounds. So notice, in this one, we do have the same exact vowel sound, oo, 3 times in a row. Those are some ooh, ooh, ooh. That's intentional. For one, that does slow down the meter once again, so it forces us to move more slowly with those long vowels. Ooh is a pretty long sound to make. It's certainly longer than O. It's longer than which are all vowel sounds that O can make, by the way. Another reason why a poet might choose to make that sound is that that's the exact same sound we make. It's the exact same emotional sound we make when we see something that we like a pair of cool shoes, right? So Sue comes in just rocking a pair of Yeezys, right? And we say, ooh, that's intentional. Those are some cool shoes, Sue. And those ooh sounds are intentional right there. I would suggest that that is kind of a general rule of thumb with assonance, is that longer vowels are associated with stronger or more passionate emotions. Like I and E and A might be longer sounds that are associated with things like sadness or crying, U with excitement, O with surprise. So just notice how we can kind of attach different emotions to different vowel sounds, especially when they get repeated in poetry. The third sound device is onomatopoeia. Everyone say onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is using words that imitate the exact same sounds they describe. Words like boom. When you say the word boom, it makes a boom sound, making it onomatopoeia. Some of these are not perfect. Wow is not necessarily onomatopoeia, but splat makes a sound when you make it. It's onomatopoeia. Zap, pow, smash makes that kind of rough sound when you say it. Pop makes a sound when you say it. That's all use of onomatopoeia as well. Suggest to you that onomatopoeias are also used to imitate sounds in poetry. So if we had a line that said something like, the buzzing bee zipped through the air, right? Notice that buzz and zip make those z sounds, which is the exact same sound that we want to imitate with a bee, with the very bee that we're picturing in that poem. Again, we'll get lots of practice with these as we work through a couple poems together for the rest of this lesson. Let's start this off with Rifle by Rudy Francisco.
And the article says, the Mexican government confiscates approximately 30,000 illegal firearms per year. When the guns are taken, they get dismantled and effectively also other types of weapons that were involved in firearms. In 2020, Petro raids and arrests from Mexico City and Mexico's government to gun own violence and gun. And the two guns are also consequences. So somewhere in the container room, a drum set, a guitar, all they have things that are used to take people's guns, but now they create a sound that puts back into people's bodies, which is to say, a weapon will always be a weapon.
Which is to say, a weapon will always be a weapon. Listen to all those W's in that line and in the line that follows. And that's alliteration. Notice that this is kind of where Rudy Francisco is starting to up the tempo, up the speed, up the rhythm of his poem. And he's using alliteration to boost that meter as well. How many W's are there? Which is 1, weapon is 2, will is 3, always has that W sound in it, which is 4. Weapon, again, is 5. We in war is 7. And here we see some assonance, right? We saw alliteration with all those W's, but now we see some assonance too. Also and call both use the ah sound. That and battle both make the ah sound. Now, I don't think Rudy Francisco is trying to imitate any emotions right here, but that is a pretty line of poetry, right? Don't we also call that a battle? He's going to continue to play with alliteration and assonance throughout this poem, so keep your ears peeled for those. I turned his nose into a fountain, F. My fist, F. 5 pennies, F. Those F's right there are helping him to create kind of that harsher sound where he's trying to capture, once again, the emotions of this moment, right? It was a violent moment for him.
I closed my eyes, I made a wish, I came home with bloody knuckles, and it was the first piece of artwork we had in the fridge. I remember staring at my hands, the same way you stare at a textbook and answers on the rest. I didn't know what class this was, but I didn't know I was passing, and that's what masculinity has become. I didn't know what class this was, but I knew that I was passing, and isn't that what masculinity has become? Notice this is assonance stretched out over several lines right there. Class, pass, and masculinity. Not only is that assonance, but it's also internal rhyme that's going on in this poem too. There is kind of a fine line between assonance and internal rhyme. But notice how Rudy Francisco is just weaving in these sound devices all throughout his poem. Obviously, it's a spoken word poem, so it's meant to be read aloud. It's meant to be pretty and flowy, and it's meant to sound good on our ears. He's using alliteration and assonance to do that.
All the damage they're doing in the distance, those D's, right? That's helping him to keep meter. All the damage they're doing in the distance. 1, 2, 3. It's that 1, 2, 3 punch that really causes that line to stick with us. That is part of the reason why poets use alliteration, assonance, onomatopoeia. It's so that important lines will stick in our brains as well. This is an important line, right? He even used some earlier too, right? We turn our boys, B, into bayonets, B, right? He's using that metaphor right there to bring up the point that it's our society sometimes that causes us to raise our children wrong. He's speaking from a male perspective. He's making that suggestion that our society is part of the reason why boys grow up with some of the violent tendencies, some of the problems that they have. And then we ignore the damage they're doing in the distance. We're ignoring some of the long-term effects of their actions, right? We're not raising our boys right, is part of what he's arguing.
The word repurpose. The word repurpose means to take an object and give it amnesia. It means to make something forget what you're trying to do, so you use it for a better reason. I am learning that this body is not a shotgun. I am learning that this body is not a pistol. I am learning that a man is not defined by what he can destroy.
I just saw something for the first time. This is crazy. So we mentioned repeated B's and D's and alliteration, right? Boys into bayonets, all the damage they're doing in the distance, and we just saw B's and D's again, right? The word body repeated. I'm learning that this body is not a shotgun. I'm learning that this body is not a pistol. I'm learning that a man is not defined, D, by what he can destroy. So notice how the B's and D's got transformed from negative lines talking about the damage that boys do to positive ones, that he's learning to step out of that, right? The theme of this poem is transformation, and notice how there's even transformation in how some of these devices are used, like alliteration. There's another great piece of alliteration coming up here in my favorite line in this poem.
Not defined by what he can destroy. I am learning that a person who only knows how to fight can only communicate violence and passion. And anyone who wants to leave the I'm learning the difference between a garden and a graveyard is
Garden, graveyard, ground. More alliteration in this poem.
Once I came across a picture of a strange looking black girl. The caption said that it was made out of hair. And I thought to myself, you know,
That could be me. There we go. So all that's left is one more example right here. This is Quincy Troop's A Poem for Magic. It does say, underline 2 examples of alliteration, circle 2 examples of assonance. There's quite a bit of both of them in this poem, so I'm just going to read through it. What I want you to do as you're listening in on this poem is to try to keep track of examples of alliteration or assonance that you like. We'll talk about onomatopoeia a bit more after this poem. This poem is one that's meant to be read aloud, and there's a lot of these sound devices to be found, so it's okay if you find multiple examples because there's lots of them in this poem. I want to clarify that Magic in this poem is Magic Johnson, so famous ex-NBA basketball player. I think he owns a team now. I can't remember which team, but this poem is written for him. It's kind of an ode to him. Listen closely. This is A Poem for Magic by Quincy Troop. Take it to the hoop, Magic Johnson. Take the ball dazzling down the open lane. Herk and jerk and raise your 6 feet 9 inch frame into the air, sweating screams of your neon name. Magic Johnson, nicknamed Windex way back in high school, because you wiped glass backboards so clean where you first juked and shook wild your way to glory. A new style fusion of shake and bake energy. Using everything possible, you created your own space to fly through. Any moment now, we expect your wings to spread feathers for that spooky takeoff of yours. Then shake and glide and ride up in space till you hammer home a clotheslining deuce off glass. Now come back down with a reverse hoodoo gem off the spin and stick and sweet, popping nets clean from 20 feet. Right side. Put the ball on the floor again, Magic. Slide the dribble behind your back, ease it deftly between your bony stork legs. Head bobbing ever which away, up and down you see everything on the court. Off the high yo-yo patter, stop and go dribble, you thread a needle rope pass sweet home to Kareem. Cutting through the lane, his skyhook pops the cords now. Lead the fast break, hit worthy on the fly. Now blindside a pinpoint behind the back pass for 2 more. Off the fake, looking the other way, you raise off balance into electric space. Sweating chants of your name. Turn 180 degrees off the move, your legs scissoring space like a swimmer's yo-yoing motion in deep water. Stretching out now toward free flight, you double pump through human trees, hang in place, slip the ball into your left hand, then deal it like a Las Vegas card dealer off squared glass into nets, living up to your singular nickname. So bad you cartwheel the crowd toward frenzy, wearing now your electric smile, neon as your name. In victory, we suddenly sense your glorious uplift, your urgent need to be champion. And so we cheer with you, rejoice with you, for this quicksilver moment of fame. So put the ball on the floor again, Magic. Juke and dazzle, shake and bake down the lane. Take the sucker to the hoop, Magic Johnson. Recreate reverse hoodoo gems off the spin. Deal alley-oop, dunkathon, magician passes. Now double pump, scissor, vamp through space, hang in place, and put it all up in the sucker's face, Magic. And deal the round ball like the juju man that you am. Like the Shonuff shaman that you am, Magic. Like the Shonuff spaceman you am. Whew, that is a mouthful to read that poem. It's a fun one to read because so many sound devices going in there. Before we get to onomatopoeia here, let's go back through this poem here a bit and look for alliteration and assonance. So if we notice, I hope you notice in line 2, take the ball dazzling down the open lane. So D sounds, whoops. So D sounds, right? Duh, duh. Herk and jerk, a little bit of internal rhyme, maybe some assonance there as well. Raise your 6 feet 9 inch frame. Into the air, sweating screams of your neon name. So there we see repeated S's, repeated N's as well. Magic Johnson, nicknamed Windex, way back, so more W's right there. I want you to think about why we're hearing these sounds, right? D might make the sound of a basketball dribbling. Do I have my soccer ball to imitate that sound? Yes, I do. So listen for that D sound, right? You can hear that, right? Dazzling down, right? The open lane. Herk and jerk, that's a little bit of assonance. Sweating screams. I want you to imagine here you're watching an NBA game. What do you always hear in the background? It's the little squeaky sounds of people's shoes, right? Watch for S's throughout this poem because that's imitating the sounds of squeaky basketball shoes on the court. I think W kind of does the same thing. It's that W and S sound that makes that squeaky sound throughout the poem. Shake and bake is an example of assonance right there. That's that A sound repeated right there. Shake and glide and ride, a little more assonance there. Till you hammer home, that H sound might make the sound of the net. In basketball, it makes kind of that sound as a ball goes through it. Off the spin and stick and sweet, more S sounds. Once again, you're going to see S's all throughout this poem because it makes the sound of basketball shoes on the court. B's here as well for dribble. Now, first of all, the word dribble is onomatopoeia. The word dribble makes kind of that bouncy sound. Dribble, 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 dribble. But notice that there's a D and a B in there. So we saw some D's dazzling down the open lane. And now we see B's as well, right? Slide the dribble behind your back, ease it deftly between your bony stork legs, head bobbing. B's also make the sound of a ball dribbling. Slide the dribble behind your back, ease it deftly between your bony stork legs, head bobbing ever which away. You're going to see more B's throughout this poem too. We're just getting started too. This is early in these poem lyrics here. Blindside a pinpoint behind the back pass. More B's right there. The sound of dribbling in basketball. Lots and lots and lots of alliteration in this poem. Some assonance between lines right here. Off the fake, looking the other way, you raise off balance into electric space. Fake, way, raise, and space all make A sounds right there. For me, it makes me think of A, right? You're watching a basketball game. You're watching Magic Johnson hit a behind-the-back pass for a nice field goal. We in the crowd might be making that A sound. We're cheering for him. We can see how assonance might make the sound of a crowd cheering for Magic Johnson in this poem. There's some more S's. Your legs scissoring space like a swimmer's. Stretching out now toward free flight. More F sounds. Maybe that makes the sound of a net as well. Deal it like a Las Vegas card dealer. More D's right there. Neon as your name. We got some nice repeated N sounds there. More alliteration. I love this little bit of assonance too. Vamp through space, hang in place, put it all up in the sucker's face. More A's right there. Again, that could be a crowd cheering. And we end right there as well. So that's just alliteration and assonance. Lots and lots of repeated sounds in this poem. Part of it is to imitate the basketball game that he's playing in, but part of it's also to capture the emotions of the crowd too. We didn't talk onomatopoeia, so all throughout the poem he uses onomatopoeia to make the poem sound like a basketball game. Same thing with the alliteration and assonance here. Let's look for some examples in this poem, just for extra practice here, going back to the top. Once again, one thing that we want to note with onomatopoeia is that the words that we see in this poem, the examples of onomatopoeia that we're going to see, are meant to imitate the sounds of a basketball game. Into the air sweating screams. The word scream makes an ee sound, right? It's onomatopoeia. Again, it's capturing the crowd in this poem. The word wipe makes that sound to it, just like the sound, once again, of a basketball shoe on the floor, or the sound of maybe someone's hand running down a backboard. My favorite couple of lines metrically in this poem. Off the spin and stick and sweet, popping nets clean from 20 feet. I've even missed that assonance before. Sweet and feet, it's actually internal rhyme. But the word popping is onomatopoeia, right? Again, it's the sound of a net. When you swish a basketball right through it, it makes that sound. That's what this line is capturing there. Dribble, we said, is onomatopoeia earlier. It makes that double bounce kind of sound to it. Dribble. What else do we have? There's pops again. His skyhook pops the chords now. And there we go. I just checked through the rest of the poem for onomatopoeia. We caught all the great examples for it right there. Now, we've seen lots of alliteration, assonance, onomatopoeia, and the question is why? What is the overall meaning of this poem? How do the sound elements of the poem bring out this meaning? This poem has a really simple meaning if we just look at its title, right? It's called A Poem for Magic. This poem is just meant to celebrate Magic Johnson's basketball career. Really, the theme of this poem is that Magic Johnson was perhaps the best, perhaps it's arguing that he was the greatest of all time, or perhaps it's just arguing that he was a really entertaining player to watch. But notice how the sound elements of the poem bring out this meaning. When we listen to this poem said aloud, it brings us courtside, where we can watch him play in real time, right? The alliteration, the assonance, the onomatopoeia, it imitates the sounds of that basketball game, so it feels like we're there. It also captures the energy of the crowd in that game, too, so that we feel like we're in the crowd watching this very special player playing basketball. That's the idea with how sound devices work in poetry. Once again, alliteration, assonance, onomatopoeia. You'll see a little bit of these on your poetry unit test, so know their definitions. You'll also see a couple of questions in our poem on your test that have to do with alliteration and assonance. As we wrap up today's lesson, don't forget about our grammar mini reviews right here. These are really short little videos that will lead you through just some examples for the grammatical concepts we covered this semester to prep you for your test. I want to finish this lesson by looking at our calendar here. So I'm going to click our calendar. And we are right here. So we are in our last full week of school right here. Today is probably Tuesday or Wednesday as you're watching this. You should note that I'm going to open up our poetry unit test on Thursday the 17th. It's not going to be due until the end of the 22nd, so I'm going to leave it open through the weekend. That gives you time to study as much as you need as you prep to take your test. The test itself has a 1-hour timer. I can't imagine it'll take you any longer than 40 minutes or so to take it, so just make sure you're giving yourself enough time to take it virtually. You are allowed to take it in person with me in my classroom if you come in on the 17th or 18th. Please also note I'm leaving vocabulary quiz words L through Q open through Friday as well, so if you haven't completed that, you can do that too. I'm going to continue to take missing work and those kinds of things through this week. I really want to keep missing work to a minimum on the 21st and 22nd, so please make sure you're getting things in throughout the week this week. I'm not going to give any new content on Thursday and Friday, so you can use those days to make up work. You can use them to take your test. I just want to make sure that I give you enough space to complete this semester over those last couple days of school right there. So please make sure you're getting that complete. Once again, the test will be available from the 17th through the 22nd. It does have a timer, so you won't be able to look up every single answer, but know that that test is going to cover poetry terms and their meanings. You'll see some multiple choice questions about a poem that I give you. You'll have a small set of grammar questions, ACT-style grammar questions. Then I'll also ask you to write a paragraph about what you've learned this semester. And that's everything on your unit test.